Welcome to Ravinheart Rendition Shop Time, and we are talking with Hendrik Varju again. How you doing, Hendrik?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Doing good. Getting over my cold finally, and getting to the weather where I can wear my new jacket and everything. So I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's kind of nasty when you get sick this early in the season, but it does happen.
Yeah, yeah. It was hot out, and I was laid up, and I'm like, well, this is awful.
Yeah.
So, you're up there in probably a little bit colder than I am, but you've had some heat up there, and but you got to take a little trip down to the hot part of our country too recently. You went to IWF, right?
Yeah. That was, I guess, the third week of August down in Atlanta. So actually, the whole time I was there, it was very nice weather. It was only in the low 80s, which is unusual. Normally, it would be up around 100 there.
Well, it's good we adjusted it for you when you come down.
Yeah, I mean, normally it's so smoking hot down there. You just
Yeah.
want to hide inside the conference center the whole time. But this time, walking back to the hotel and stuff, it really was a pleasant few days. So
That's cool. How long were you there for the whole show, or?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, the show ran Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I flew down on Tuesday, spent the night, the night before the show started there, and I didn't fly back till about 5 o'clock on the Saturday. So I was at the show even on the fourth day till about maybe 1:30 in the afternoon or something, and then took off to the airport.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I mean, I guess you haven't been to that show before then?
No, I haven't made it down to that one. So I hope to someday.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely massive. I was actually writing a blog every day while I was down there for Canadian Home Workshop magazine.
Oh, cool.
It's one of the magazines I write for here in Canada. And um, yeah, I mean, I was saying, the first 2 days of the show, I'm literally walking around, 8, 9 hours a day. And after the first 2 days, I was still on building number one.
Oh, wow.
Desperately trying to get to building two. So that kind of gives you an idea how big it is. It's just huge. I mean, compared to any consumer level woodworking show, I mean, this is like having, 30 or 40 of those put together. That's how big it is.
Well, and I'm happy with the one that we get, the small one that we get that comes through Milwaukee.
Yeah. I mean, this one covers everything from, massive machinery for factories to the kind of equipment I would be interested in, like, table saws and jointers and planers and that kind of stuff. And then you got hand tools, but then you have a whole building of things like finishes, cabinet lighting, drawer components, hardware, and again, anything from the small shop right to like massive factory production. So it just goes on forever.
Yeah, I've heard they've got some really big machinery too. Now, is that all in one area, or do they have all of the big stuff mixed in, or is it kind of the big stuff on one part and the consumer stuff on the other? Or?
No, I mean, well, yeah, you would have. There was only one building where you had mostly equipment, and the other building was mostly hardware, veneers and stuff like that. But the building with the equipment, you'd kind of have different pockets where you'd have sort of the large CNC machinery kind of stuff. It's pretty neat because, I mean, it's, it gets a little boring after a while once you've seen many of them, but they actually have, machines running at the show. I mean, it's not just sitting there for you to look at. It's actually all hooked up with this massive, electricity.
Oh, wow.
Big, huge wires, and and you'll have a worker standing there feeding wood into a machine, and then you can walk, 50, 60 feet away to see what's coming out the other side. And you can look inside these giant CNC machines, like through these little windows on the walls,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of see what's going on inside. And I mean, it's not really woodworking, like, to me, because there's no human being inside there doing it.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty amazing to see the technologies that are out there to make cabinets and cut up panels with robots and all this stuff. It's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, and for like with the robots and everything, the being a computer geek like I am and stuff, it's kind of an impressive machine. Some of those things, it's like wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'll just have this huge robot with like air, like a vacuum system to lift whole sheets of plywood, and it's all programmed to just lift it and turn and then put it on this conveyor belt, and then it takes off, and this saw starts ripping it into strips. And it's pretty amazing, the technology to build factory kind of stuff and make lots of stuff quickly.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but I mean, once you've seen 10 or so of those machines, there's only so much interest for me in that kind of stuff. I'd rather get down to the everyday, Powermatic and Jet and General and all the companies that we kind of know.
Yeah.
And all the hand tools, the power tools, all that stuff.
Cool. So was there anything really out of the ordinary that you remember seeing at all, or?
Well, I mean, you could kind of tell that a lot of the innovations right now, I think the economy is still bad enough that companies aren't putting massive amounts of money into new equipment. But, I did see just a few new features on bandsaws, like at the Powermatic booth. I spent, I'm down there for one of the magazines I write for.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of know that you're a member of the media, and they set up appointments with you, right?
Oh, cool.
So it's not just like walking through like a consumer. I'm actually meeting with some of the head marketing people at the big companies, and sitting down with them and talking about where their company is headed and what their strategy is and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, there was some neat stuff. Like Bosch is coming out with a whole bunch of new tools, like a 90-degree angle drill, but a bigger one than they had before, and some new jigsaws, and Woodcraft had a number of new things, like I don't know if you've heard of that mixing mate thing. It's like a thing that you attach onto the top of a paint can, and then you can swirl, like you can actually stir the finish by turning a dial, and then you can pour it out. It's almost like one of those pitchers you get at a pancake house to pour syrup out. So, things like that, and of course Lee Valley, being a Canadian company, Lee Valley Veritas, they're always there, and I'm always interested to see what they have. So they have, a new hand plane coming out. They've got some new kind of steel called the PMV11. It's a new steel alloy that they're using for chisels and hand plane blades. So
cool.
There was a lot of stuff like that to see, but there wasn't a lot of like, whole new big machinery or huge inventions, like anything that really jumped out, but lots of little things,
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so it was pretty neat. I mean, there were also some companies that weren't there that was a bit shocking, like, DeWalt had no presence there whatsoever, which was a bit weird. A few dealers maybe, but not like a corporate booth.
Mm-hmm.
And Delta wasn't there, and Grizzly wasn't there. Grizzly wasn't there the last time either, 2 years ago. So, you could see a few of the bigger players pulling out, saying, we got other ways to market these days. But then there were still lots of big companies there, so you got a bit of everything.
Yeah, the little bit that I've heard out on the internet about the show was that it is going back to having more people and more vendors there, but it's still not to where it was at one point, and I guess that's the sign of the economy too. But at least it's a sign that it's getting back there, so that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there. This was either my fourth or fifth time there. I can't remember, but I know, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, it would have been at least 30 to 40% bigger than it is now.
Oh wow.
So it did drop quite a bit last year, or 2 years ago. But this time, I would say it expanded a little bit from the year prior, but attendance for sure was higher. I mean, that was obvious. There were so many more people there. You could just tell, the aisles were fuller.
Oh, good.
A little more excitement, and, I got to chat with a bunch of business owners and kind of ask them how things are going in their companies, and there seems to be a lot of optimism out there.
Good.
People are still struggling a little, but optimistic, and things seem to be turning around a little bit, so can't hurt.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, speaking about people coming out with new things, what was it that I heard? Something about 2 new DVDs somebody released on Monday, what was that, the 10th?
Yeah, and actually, nobody knows this, but it actually was supposed to be launched right after Labor Day weekend, like for, the Tuesday the week prior.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of a mix-up with the manufacturer. There was a problem. I had to ship all the units back,
Whoops.
have one of the discs redone, and anyway, it's a long story, but after another 5 or 6 days of pulling our hair and getting the thing out, finally on Monday, I was able to make it all public. So.
Oh, good. That's good. Good to see. And I guess I'll let you do the official titles, but I am looking forward to taking a look at them.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I told you I got both of these on the way to you, so
Yep.
you can look at them and watch some of it at least. Between the two productions, you've got about 19 and a half hours to watch. So I get the feeling you won't get through all of it. But yeah, I started doing the DVDs back in 2007. I did a video called Jointer and Planer Secrets, and that was a 4.5 hour long 2-disc set. And then the next year I did one on the table saw, and then I started putting out 2 each year, and I always release them in September, right after Labor Day. So this is the first time I've come out with hand tools. The first one is called Sharpening and Tuning Hand Planes and Chisels, and it's let's see, about almost 9 hours long on 5 discs.
Cool.
And what it goes into, I mean, we can talk about it again in future shows, but
yeah,
what it goes into basically is all the equipment that you need to sharpen planes and chisels. It goes into how to tune up chisels and planes, like if they're either older ones or they could be newer ones that just aren't, the highest quality, where you actually have to lap the backs and lap the sole of the plane and do all kinds of fussy work on these planes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into all that, how to sharpen. Like I like to hollow grind on a grinder, and then I like to hone freehand. So I go into all my freehand honing techniques. And then there's a section I call bonus footage on how to camber hand plane blades as well. So that includes grinding on the grinder and freehand honing, but how to put a camber on blades that you want to do that with.
Oh, cool.
So that's the first production, and then the second production is another 5 DVD set, 10.5 hours long, and it's called Hand Planing Techniques. So that one focuses just strictly on, okay, now you've got a sharp hand plane, now it's well tuned, now let me show you how to use it.
Cool.
And that goes into all kinds of techniques from, leveling dovetails and finger joints, flattening out a tabletop maybe that you built, all kinds of stuff, how to use a shoulder plane, it also covers in a bonus section how to sharpen shoulder planes and set them up, because I thought that was kind of a fussy plane to deal with. So anyway, so these videos are on the way to you, and yeah, if you get a chance to at least watch some of it, maybe we can spend a couple of shows in future going into more detail on each one, and then we can also do like a prize draw, give out 1 copy of each to some of your listeners.
Yeah, that sounds great. I look forward to watching it, and we'll figure out some way to pick the winner along the way. Well, I think we'll do something different for each one, but that sounds great, and I actually look forward to looking at them and making the footage will be helpful. I've just went through and sharpened a lot of stuff around here.
Okay.
And there's a few things that I'm looking at going, I don't know if I want to do that one. That might help out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the thing about my videos, I mean, my shortest one is the first one I did, the 4.5 hour one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because I didn't even know if it would be a, profitable thing to do in the first place. So my first one was I was kind of holding back. and then ever since then, they've either been mostly 5 disc sets. Some are 4, there's one that's 3. But, the way mine are, it sounds bizarre to have a video set that's 10 hours long. It sounds crazy, but it's not meant to be like a lot of the videos you buy, where it's almost like you're watching a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And the host kind of shows you something cool, but they don't really show you that much detail, and a lot of the hard stuff seems to be edited out, and they just show you at the end how cool, how great it is,
mm-hmm.
how perfectly it worked out.
Yeah.
This really is, like I call it. It says on the cover of each of my videos, I call it private woodworking instruction in a box. So the idea is that this is a course. This is the equivalent of you being in my shop for, you know, a 10-hour long seminar, maybe spread over 2 days, where I go into every last detail and demonstrate it, and we've got tons of close-ups, and, you know, there's nothing for you to miss. I mean, there's no heavy editing in the sense of cutting out the important stuff. You know?
Yeah, cool.
So it's good, but you got to be interested. Otherwise, you're falling asleep.
Well, sharpening, sadly enough, is something that does interest me, and the hand plane stuff does too. It's I love the ones that I know how to use well. I love, and the ones that I'm working on it seems to be a frustration until you hit that point of I got it, and then it's like yay.
Yeah, I mean, sharpening to me is one of those skills that you know, it really does take years to get to the point where you feel like you know it well. And it seems like every year, you know, especially maybe, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, I remember every year thinking, oh, I really know this well now. But then the next year you'd look back and go, you know what, I didn't know that much last year. I know so much more now. And it's just, you know, that's how learning is in woodworking. It's incremental, and the more you know, the less you add on to that knowledge each year, but it still never ends. Like there's still some small little tidbit of finesse being learned every single year.
A huge series of aha moments.
Yeah. I mean, you can, you know, it's one of those things where you can learn 80% of it in 20% of the time, and then the next 20% takes the full 80% of the time.
Yeah.
and you never really get to 100%. You're still stuck at 98 or something.
Yep.
No matter how many years you've done it. So anyways, it's good stuff, but yeah, you got to really, you know, the first time somebody sharpens a blade to the point they can shave hair off their arm, I mean, that's like, to me, just such an amazing moment.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where you've heard of it, you've seen maybe some other people do it, but you just never been able to get there. And when you first do, for the first time, you really understand it. You're like, wow, that's what a sharp plane feels like. So
yeah,
it's all important stuff.
And I started sharpening on, you know, when I was probably 10 or 12 years old, I started sharpening hunting knives. And that was old oil stones, and that's completely freehand, and it's different, and it's different steel and everything else. So the first time I, you know, picked up a chisel, I'm like, well, I know how to sharpen stuff. And you try sharpening a chisel on an old oil stone, and it's, you know, it's not really flat because when you're sharpening a hunting knife, you're only sharpening, you know, a really thin piece of it at a time, and you're constantly moving, and and then you do that with a chisel, and you're like, well, that's not flat anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have students all the time who bring in their own tools, you know, their chisels and plane blades and everything here, and I take one look at their chisel, and I mean, it's just wild, all the different shapes on there. And you know, the back is totally convex, and you know, sometimes they've actually been reading magazine articles about sharpening, and they've actually put quite a bit of time into reading about it, but there's still, the results are just way off. And you know, I mean, that kind of thing to me is very rewarding, to take a person like that and within a half a day or a day get them to understand what was wrong with that tool and what it should look like and how it should work. And you know, it's pretty amazing to get past that point.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, that's all stuff we can get into the next couple of shows. You know, go into the different chapters, the different topics covered, and maybe talk about some of the content, give a few tips.
Yeah, that sounds great. And anybody out there that does have any questions for Hendrik about the next episode, we'll be covering the sharpening, and feel free to send them on over, and we'll put them to Hendrik as we talk about the sharpening DVD, and look forward to your chance to hopefully win a copy of it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully people will send you some questions if they you know, if they've been having some trouble with some of these techniques. It'd be good to hear those questions and give some thoughts anyway.
Yeah, sounds great. Cool. Well, talking about the skills, we were talking about last time about getting into woodworking, and we kind of covered, you know, that the shop is important, and the layout to the shop is important, and you know, the tools that you pick, you know, picking the best tools you can afford at the time, and going with quality stuff, and and all that is kind of the getting started in it and having a place to do it and some of the tools and like we talked beforehand, you may not have all the tools you want, but you may have tools to build something. And I guess this time we thought about, well, what about the skills that go along with some of those tools? And I guess if somebody came to you as a beginner, what are some of the things you would recommend that, cover this because it's going to help you later?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I haven't forgotten the days from back when I wasn't a professional yet, when I had very few tools compared to today.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing woodworking in a small apartment kitchen, with nothing but a jigsaw and maybe 4 cheap F-clamps, some sandpaper, a drill, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And, you look back at those projects and just shudder at how bad they were. But it's an exciting time for people to, it kind of shows how the desire to build something is even more important than any of the tools. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of have to remember, because I don't meet as many people in my teaching in that kind of boat where they don't have any shop space at all, and can't have at least some small equipment. But my starting point generally when a student comes here and they're a relative beginner is really to focus in the beginning on how to mill lumber using your joiner and your planer. So to me, that's a very big step for anyone getting into woodworking, is to start buying rough lumber and dimension everything yourself instead of just buying pre-milled stuff from the lumberyard.
Mm-hmm. And that pre-milled stuff, even when I pick that up, it seems to need some work too. So knowing that the way to mill it certainly helps even then.
Yeah, I mean, I keep explaining to people that it's hard enough getting good joinery with stock that is flat and true and square. It's nearly impossible with stock that is warped and twisted and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So occasionally I have someone take a course here on, they want to learn something a little more advanced, like dovetailing or something like that. And I say to them, well, look, if we're going to cover dovetailing and we're going to get it done in a day or a day and a half or whatever, and you tell me you have a joiner and you have a planer at home, I'm going to tell you what materials to prepare before you even start your course. Bring it in, and then we can get right into the dovetailing. We don't have to waste time, picking lumber and joining and planing and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, okay, no, great idea, So first of all, most of the people that mill their stuff and bring it in, the stuff is not even close to as flat or square as I expect. But even worse, occasionally someone shows up and says, I was planning to mill it, but I kind of ran out of time, and I kind of misjudged how much time it would take to do that. So I just ran out to whatever Home Depot or whatever last night and bought this and I brought it in. And they kind of assumed that would be close enough. And, I just got to show them right away. This board's curved, this board's twisted, and, we need to go to the joiner and the planer, and we got to get this stuff all true. Otherwise, the rest of the course is just not going to work out. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, when I'm teaching, I kind of focus on skills first, and it is nice to work on a small project to learn those skills on, and not just like grab a board and mill it for no reason. Right?
Yeah.
It is nice to have a goal, because then the student learns about planning and coming up with a cutting list, and sometimes we design it together from scratch too.
Mm-hmm.
But really, where I start, number one, is we take the rough lumber and we need to do some cutting, like some rough cutting on the table saw, or you could use a bandsaw, but I use the table saw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole bunch of information right there that they need to learn first about how to even use a table saw safely.
Mm-hmm.
And then we progress to joiner and planer, and we learn everything from how do we joint concave stock, convex stock, twisted stock, where do we put our hands, how do we stand at the jointer, how much do we cut off, how do we read the grain. I mean, that's a massive hugely important
Yeah.
topic for anyone to learn. Like you can't start joining unless you know which way to go.
Yep.
So I start with all of that, like how to read the grain, how to joint faces, how to joint edges, and then how to use the planer. And I could easily spend 2 full days easy just on table saw joiner planer
Mhm.
for a beginner. And hopefully they have their own small workshop at home with a little 6-inch joiner, portable planer, or whatever,
Mhm.
and they can go home and mill more stock, because really most of the learning happens after you've left here and you're on your own. I mean, that's the truth, right?
Yeah, and the repetition of doing it and getting that in there, going, okay, now I know how to do this. Now the next step and the next step.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got to gain the right information and knowledge to know where to start, but really most of the learning happens when you put tons of time into doing it repetitively at home,
Mhm.
and that's where you go. So when I'm teaching a beginner, that's where we start, and probably the next skill after that would be something like edge gluing boards together, so that you can now make panels.
Mhm.
You can make tabletops, or you can make panels for a door, or maybe you're making a wider drawer front and you need to glue 2 or 3 boards together. To me, that's another like key skill at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then, of course, another very common one is gluing up blanks, like leg blanks.
Oh, okay.
If we're going to make table legs, like I don't turn myself, but they might be wanting to get into turning as well.
Mhm.
You got to make a blank, whether it's a turning or whether it's a tapered leg or a square leg, doesn't matter. You got to learn how to face glue correctly and how many clamps to use and all that.
A lot.
So, yeah, exactly. I got two sitting here on the floor in front of me right now, and let's see, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 clamps per leg, and they're not that long, so
Mhm.
28 clamps right there.
And
So anyway,
no matter how many
yeah,
clamps you have, you're one short.
yeah, exactly. That's why there's only 2 legs on the floor, not 4.
Yep.
And we're waiting for tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, my that's sort of my approach is start with the core subjects of how to read grain, how to dimension stock, how to use your table saw, and edge gluing and face gluing, those sorts of basics.
Mhm.
And then we start getting into more advanced things. Or on the first day, if somebody's here, we're just doing rough cutting on the table saw, right?
Mhm.
We still have to learn how do we do extremely accurate cross cutting, especially on the table saw.
Mhm.
And then we need to learn other things like using the router to do edge treatments or joinery or whatever. And we have the bandsaw, we have the drill press and all that. But to me, it's all about stock preparation, and that takes a lot longer to learn than most people think.
Yeah.
And then we get into detail stuff, joinery, and all that, right?
Yeah. Well, and the stock preparation is important, at least the way I see it too, because you need to start with that flat, square. Even if you're going to make curved surfaces, you need to start somewhere that that board is true, and you don't have anything to worry about at that point, and then you can start with the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like a good example, just a few days ago, one of my regular customers, he called me and he said, I'm building a table for my daughter, and she wants it made of this rustic barn board, which is not the kind of wood he's used to using. He's used to using nice stuff like I am, like cherry and
Mhm.
beautifully milled and everything. So he goes out to this place and buys this rough stuff,
Mhm.
and his daughter wants it to look like that, like rough,
Yeah.
but he's trying to edge glue boards together, right?
Oh.
So if you've got a rough and twisted face, how are you going to hold that against the joiner fence to get good edges so that you can join the edges correctly, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, you kind of need a flat face to do a good job on edges so that you have good joinery. But then, on the other hand, when he mills one of the faces, he's losing that rough look.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of explaining to him how I've had clients say they want it to look rustic, but I've had to mill it perfectly in order to get good joinery and then make it look rustic again, which is weird. But I've done that, and I explained to him how I have 36 grit paper from my belt sander.
Oh, there you go.
which actually can make wood look fairly rough
Yep.
after the fact, right? Anyways, I gave him kind of a roundabout way to maybe accomplish it by only jointing one face of the board, like the bottom of the table, not the top, so that the top can be an originally rough face. But it's still a little harder than it sounds, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to just drive a bunch of screws and stuff like that. I mean, that's another possibility, but it's not the way I do things usually.
Yeah, it depends on the end result, what it will be too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you just build a nice, rustic base, and then you just attach the boards to that base, like only attached at their center point with a little gap between each, kind of like floorboards.
Yeah.
And now you're not even doing any edge gluing, and you got the rustic look you're after. Right?
There you go.
Yeah, there are other ways to do it. So.
Yeah, the only stuff I've used rustic wise is in the shop. The shop used to be a bar, so the walls are covered with barn board, and but that's a little different. I mean that it's not furniture, it's construction. I could be a 16th off here and there and just cover it.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes people are working on something like that, like for their house, some kind of wall paneling or whatever. And they say to me, oh, so do I have to joint this and joint that? And I'm like, well, that's the way I work normally. But to make a board perfectly straight on your joiner and then nail it onto a curved wall doesn't make a lot of sense either. So you can kind of relax the techniques a bit for that kind of work, you know?
Yeah, I found out
the goal is to make it look good in that case. It doesn't have to be like total museum quality or anything.
Yeah, I also found out there isn't a square corner in this room either.
Right. The drywaller wasn't using the high-tech hand tools.
Yeah, it's a little different, but it looks good in the end. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we've got all the stock preparation kind of stuff. To me, that's a big area to start at, Ian. And then the other thing is, in terms of kind of a level that beginners have to cross, is the idea of designing your own stuff and not having to buy plans. You know?
Sure.
To me, that's like a big step. Is for a person to say, I'm not going to go buy those plans anymore. I'm actually going to sit down, think about what I want, or what their wife wants sometimes, or husband, and we're actually going to design this. And that's something I can spend an entire day on, no problem. Sitting down with a student, saying, "What is it you want to build? What are your ideas? Let's do a sketch. Let's then figure out a cutting list." Figure out roughly how much wood is required, which itself is a difficult thing to figure out with rough lumber. And the whole planning thing, and not only, I mean, one of the things I find so interesting sitting down and designing with somebody like that is that I can't even come up with the final cutting list till I make my joinery decisions.
Oh, right? Sure.
Because this part here, if you want a tenon on it, well, it's going to have to be 3 inches longer, maybe, like 1.5 inch tenon per end or something. Whereas if we're going to use dowel joinery, or you're going to use a domino or biscuits or whatever, then we don't need extra length. So the whole design process to me is pretty complex, because it's not just, I mean, the first starting point to me is what do you want and what does it look like? Kind of like visually what do you want it to look like? But then as we're planning it, we have to think about joinery methods, what your abilities are to execute them. Yeah. And also, what equipment do you have to even make that happen? Because someone might say, well, I don't have a router. I'll say, okay, well, you do have a bandsaw, so we could come up with a joinery method that will work with that machine. Sure. So, it's actually complex stuff, but very interesting stuff. Like I do a seminar in my shop when I have a group come in, and I call it From Concept to Plan. And the entire seminar is basically designing a piece in real time just with the ideas of the group sitting here. Oh, okay. Which is a great exercise because nothing's pre-planned, like in terms of what we're going to design. But basically I'm just asking, I'll have maybe 10 people here or whatever, and I'm just saying, okay, what are we going to design? Someone says, well, I want to do like an entertainment unit. All right, fine. What do we want? What height? What size? How big are TVs these days? How thick are they? How heavy are they? And we spend about 4.5, 5 hours designing this thing just from a bunch of ideas, and it's a really amazing process.
Well, that's kind of cool. No,
Yeah.
I've always had the kind of benefit of being kind of artsy fartsy, and then at the same time I went to school for engineering, so I have the drafting skills and a few other things. Do you see some people are kind of drawn to or natural do it quickly, and some people take a while to catch on to the designing your own part, or is it kind of the same depending on, because I mean you're teaching people, so do you see them, some people grasp it really quick and some people are almost struggling with it sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see the artsy fartsy part and the engineering side as very distinct,
Mhm.
and quite often you don't see both in the same person. You know,
Yeah.
like I still consider myself, my own design ability to be engineering wise,
Mhm.
very much about planning and everything being perfect, but I'm not that creative in the sense of making things that are free form, you know.
Okay.
But it also has to do with my techniques, which are, jointing, planing, getting everything flat, getting everything square. Like that's my style,
Mhm.
as opposed to someone who's like a sculptist or something,
Oh, sure.
working with hand tools and just sculpting free form. I mean, to me, that's a foreign thing to me, you know. So I find that when I have students come in, I might have the artsy type who's very creative. And the problem with those those people, the problem is they have these amazing ideas, but they're so difficult to accomplish.
Yep.
Like you can dream up things that I just know. Okay, yes, we can do that, but it might take 3 whole weeks. I'm charging them by the hour here, so like there's limitations in time and cost too, right?
Sure.
And then I have students who really are very much like the engineering type, and they, they design things with me that are easier to build. I mean, not easy, but definitely more linear kinds of things, right? Like straight lines and tapers and things maybe, and a few curves, but not so much like a free-form thing.
Yeah.
So that's more my style, so I feel more comfortable with it, but occasionally somebody will show up who has this wild idea, and it's like, wow, like how are we going to do that? We're talking about a bent lamination that's twisted and,
Yeah.
like just crazy stuff that would take forever. So that's the thing.
I think that's why I'm glad that originally when I ended up going for, I went for civil engineering with a structural emphasis first.
Okay.
And it was the only thing that I could think of that took art and math and put them together and put them together in one career.
Okay.
And that's how I thought about it. I'm like, well, as civil, you're doing roads and bridges and stuff, and then with structural, it's more of the bridges and the things around that. And it was an art form to make it work, and then the engineering behind it to plan it. So it was those two things that kind of. So now I do a lot of the engineering part for the really large things because I'm like, man, this would be forever to make this curved if I do this, and it'll have the appearance and just curve this one part because, like you said, the joinery is almost impossible on some of it because I just don't know. And then my scrap wood stuff, that's the hand sculpted and the messing around smaller ones.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, I was always very much into art too. But even then, it wasn't. It was more of an engineering thing. It was more like, I would do drawings of buildings or things, and perspective drawings, and I was really good at that. And then if it was a free form thing, like just a portrait or whatever, it still wasn't creative in the sense that I did it quite well, but more by like looking at someone's face and saying, okay, the eye is roughly a third of the distance away from this,
Yep.
Like it's more of a calculation, not so much like just being a natural at it. Kind of like playing piano. Like I played piano as a child, and kind of like that. I couldn't just belt out the tunes naturally, like some people can. I could just learn the music like by note and memorize it, but that's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not as skilled as the person who can just sit down and naturally play a song without ever having the music in front of them. Like that to me is amazing, right?
Yeah, I had a friend that could hear something and he could play it on almost any instrument he ever picked up. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah. I mean that's just incredible skill, but for me, it's always been a little more forced, a little more planned,
Well, planning isn't bad because then you don't have as many surprises either.
I mean, the good thing about that kind of planning is that it is something I can teach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can teach someone how to calculate things, how to gauge proportions based on, Fibonacci ratios and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy to teach almost anyone who's at least mildly, mathematically minded or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But to teach someone how to sculpt, for example, which I don't do, but that's harder to me to teach, because it's like you have to have a natural ability there already, almost.
Yeah, and sculpting something is sculpting and painting and the art forms like that is something you almost have to feel to be able to do some of that stuff too. So it's not you can teach someone, okay, that's it, like what you felt there, keep doing that. But teaching that is there's still, like you said, there has to be some kind of ability in the first place, and you can teach planning though.
Oh yeah. So and the other thing that I find one of the hardest things to teach someone, or maybe the hardest thing for anyone to learn on their own, is to know what the order of operations should be to build something.
Mm-hmm.
I've done this with students many times, like privately, but I've actually been thinking of developing a new seminar for a group called Order of Operations, because there is a very specific set of steps to go from a pile of rough lumber to a finished project. And it's like I can sit down with a student looking at a drawing and take them through that whole plan, in extreme detail, because I've done enough of it to know what should be first and what should be second and what should be after that, right?
Sure.
But I know when I was less skilled and starting out, you'd spend hours standing there scratching your head, wondering what the next step should be. And then you would think and you would do something and then go, oh no, now that that's done, the next step I was planning to do is impossible now. I should have routed that before I did this, because now I can't get in there with the router base anymore,
Yep.
So those are the kinds of things, like I can teach it, but for someone to learn that on their own, like it's almost hard to even describe how that happens. It's such a organic kind of thing, and it really has more to do with making mistakes and learning from mistakes than anything.
That's one of those aha moments, and then it's more expensive because you need more wood.
Oh yeah. Yeah, head back to the lumberyard, drive 2 hours to get one board.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that gives you some idea. Like when I'm teaching a beginner, I like to start with some kind of, maybe not design necessarily, but at least planning a project, reading the grain, using a table saw, joining, planing, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into router and other stuff. And joinery to me is like obviously important, but it's another very distinct kind of section to learn, right?
Sure.
There's so many different choices, but once we choose one, I can teach you that in one day or half a day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing, just in terms of a general approach, I really recommend people start with solid wood.
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend they stick with a simple project. Like I teach a 5-day course where we build a small cherry table.
Mm-hmm.
It has 4 tapered legs. It has some nice routed flutes on it. It has a nice little bead on the apron. It has a nice top on it. But we're learning only one joinery method. We're learning how to make legs, like leg blanks, and how to taper on 4 sides. We're learning to use the router. We're learning all the milling, reading the grain, table saw, all that stuff. But sometimes someone will say to me, well, that sounds good, but I really want the table to have a drawer. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, okay, that's fine. But now it might be a 7-day course.
Yeah.
And they just can't believe that it could take 2 whole days more to add 1 drawer. It's hard to explain to someone who's a beginner the difference in even the construction of the table between one with a drawer and one with none.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a drawer. First of all, just building the drawer, it's like building a box, right? We got to build something new. We have to do new kinds of joinery.
Mm-hmm.
We need a drawer bottom. We need a handle on the front, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we have to build the whole thing differently to accept the drawer, like whether we're doing wooden runners or we're doing metal runners, like it's up to them. But there's way more to it than they think.
Mm-hmm.
So I recommend sticking with something very simple like a four-legged table, then getting into drawers and doors. Like, to me, that's other stuff you need to learn later.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I don't really recommend getting into major plywood stuff until you really understand the solid wood first. Because with the plywood, like veneered stock, we have so little room for error with those thin veneers.
Oh, sure.
That's really not the place for someone to start. Like, a lot of people come to me, their first project, they want to start working on like a kitchen or something.
Mm-hmm.
And even though on the one hand it's kind of simpler because usually you're dealing with melamine coated particle board and screws, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely easier for the boxes. But I still feel like, you really need to learn a lot about wood and how to use all these machines before we should start getting into veneered stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. I was wondering why you were thinking the solid wood and then the plywood. And it made sense to me, but with the veneer stuff, it makes even more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking not so much melamine, but I'm talking nice cherry veneered plywood.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking
Very,
that.
very expensive, no room for error.
First thing that went through my head was walnut plywood, and then you drop something or you nick it the wrong way, and you now have a nice bright spot and right in the middle of that dark board.
Yeah, I usually recommend filling the hole and painting the whole project black.
There you go.
Solves everything. I usually recommend using like a trem-clad paint because you can go right over the wood and the hardware at the same time.
There you go.
But I mean, if you're building a solid wood table, you make some kind of a huge error, like a huge tear out or something.
Mm-hmm.
You can hand plane it down. You can, if you don't know how to use a plane yet, you can belt sand the thing down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are lots of bad things you can do trying to correct it, but there's at least a chance to fix it.
Yeah.
Whereas with veneered stock, like one big mistake, like a whole chunk of veneer disappeared, it might be game over.
Yeah.
Unless you're very skilled at repairs, which is, a whole other thing to learn.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, I mean, I restore antiques as well, so I can actually repair some pretty bad mistakes quite well. I mean, almost never is going to be perfect, but it's amazing how skilled you can get in that area too after you've made some big mistakes.
Yeah.
Realize fixing it's going to cost you $500, so you better find a way.
Yeah.
It's a good way to force yourself to learn some amazing techniques.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah. So I kind of recommend all solid wood. Don't get too fancy yet.
Mm-hmm.
Dowel joinery, maybe. I don't use biscuits, but maybe biscuits or things like that. Then I take them into things like, let's learn mortise and tenon joinery now.
Okay.
Let's learn some hand-cut dovetailing if you're interested. If you want to maybe pick a project with just one drawer or two drawers and let's dovetail them by hand. But let's not pick a project with 9 drawers because you're going to go crazy. And then, we get into, there's miters and there's splines and there's all this other stuff. And then there's stuff I don't even do, like turning and carving. And, to me, those are specialties. If you have an interest in those areas, once you know the basics, then find yourself another instructor who specializes in those specialties and go for that too, right?
Yeah.
But, one section at a time,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people starting out, they read all these magazines and go on the net and everything, and they just want to learn everything all at once, and really got to learn what are the basics and what get really, really good at each of those basic skills, and add on to that skill set incrementally. But take your time. Don't just try to jump right in there and try to have your first piece with 6 doors and 12 drawers and all hand cut dovetails. You're going to fail. As a beginner. Just one step at a time, right?
Yeah. Well, it's one guy at work says it perfectly. He always says when you're starting something out at work, he says you got to crawl, walk, and then run.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than attempting something and then failing, and then pretending you never even tried. Literally putting the material in the corner somewhere so that no one will ever see it. And then, someone walks into your shop, or your friend or your spouse or whatever, and says, "Oh, where's that thing you were working on?" "Oh, never mind. I decided to start over."
Yeah.
That's an awful way to lose your confidence and lose your will to even try anymore. I think stick with something simple, but take as much time as it takes to do it really well.
Mm.
And you need to get some good stuff under your belt to feel good. And it's only that accomplishment that drives you further. You got to know what your limits are and stay within it, and push outside of those limits slowly, but over a period of time. Don't rush things.
Yeah, cool. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose we can get toward the end of a few things here. I guess, like we said before, if anybody has any questions for Hendrik about what we've talked about up to this point, or any other of the conversations we got to have, shoot them over. And if you have any questions on the upcoming episodes, the next one will be about the sharpening DVD, and the one after that will follow the hand plane. So feel free to shoot them over, and if not, we will still have plenty to talk about, because I'm going to be watching them videos. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, just make sure your wife's not in the room, because I'll tell you, a lot of my students are emailing me saying, "I'm watching this video for the third time," and I'm like, "Your poor wife, just fed up of looking at me and listening to me every time she walks through the room. There I am again. It's like crazy."
She usually goes to bed earlier, so I have some time.
I mean, frankly, by the time I'm done producing these videos, I'm sick of looking at it. I've looked at every second of the thing so many times. It's like, okay, it's done.
So how much footage do you have to put in to end up having 9 or 10 hours of video?
Probably less than you think.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, a lot of people, who are in the film industry will tell you they spend like a whole day and they only got 1 minute of footage total, right? I mean, it's clearly not that, but I've been teaching and doing live seminars for so long now that there isn't a huge number of errors. There's a lot of stopping the camera to move the lighting and all that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's probably a 50% ratio kind of thing.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Like film 20 hours to get 10 hours of finished footage.
That's not too bad.
No, that's not bad. But still, like when you watch one of these productions, you won't really notice because you're just watching it and enjoying it. But one production 10 hours long will have something like 600 transitions in it. Like, in other words, cutting. I don't mean editing necessarily, but cutting or fading. Oh, sure. Or, going to a close-up or whatever. I mean, there are hundreds of them. And the number of audio edits, because there's a little interference in the microphone or whatever, like, you have no idea how much of that goes on behind the scenes. It's really amazing how many hundreds of hours go into the editing. Yeah. Yeah, even though like I said, we're not going through 10 times the footage to get what we're using. It's still amazing, the editing process and how much detail there is there, Yeah, and I know from the few videos that I have done, like I did the one that's out on the site now, the most recent video was, there's a guy up in Green Bay who teaches a wood turning course in Green Bay. And Kerry Heltman and I were joking around about how our lathe is our nemesis because we're not very good with it. And he said, well, come on up here and I'll show you. So we did 2 sessions so far, and we're going to end up doing a third one. And the first one was on sharpening. And sharpening lathe tools is entirely different. And we went through each, the rougher and the spindle gouges and the bowl gouges and all those things. And the amount of time we shot compared to the amount of time, because I just left the camera running, and we cut out the parts that weren't any good, and when we were goofing off a little bit and stuff. But and that's not production quality. I mean, it's enough that people can learn something off it if they watch the website and know that they could go to Kelly and he would be able to teach them more. But I mean, the amount of time to edit a video compared to the time to edit audio, oh my gosh, it's such a difference. Yeah. I mean, I don't do the editing stuff myself. I mean, there's 3 people who worked on this production other than me, like me and 3 other people filming and editing literally for months, like hundreds and hundreds of hours. And even my wife helps out with some of the spreadsheets we have to fill out. Like, I'm the one who goes through all the raw footage, every second of it, and makes every editing decision.
Oh, cool.
Where is it being cut? What's being moved, like for a close up or whatever. I have to make all those decisions, but then I input it into this monster Excel spreadsheet that runs for pages long.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes to editors who are working on Macs and using professional editing software. So it's all professionally done, but the number of hours involved is outrageous.
Yeah. Wow.
And occasionally, I always find this strange. Somebody buys one of my videos, and then they email me a month later, and they say, "Oh, I love that video. I really want one on this topic. Can you like put one out maybe in a week or two?"
You just fire that up.
I'm thinking, like, I hope my videos don't look like I just stuck a camera on a tripod and hit on.
Well, those are mine.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to think I'm going to be able to pump out a whole new 10-hour video in a week or two. I don't think you're getting it here. I mean, do my videos look that bad that you think that's how I did it? Hopefully not. Anyways, people are always like, "Oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do that." I'm like, well, I don't like to talk about the next topic. I want it to be totally surprised when I bring it out. But, it's not going to be for another year. You're not going to see a video every month. It's not that simple, right? I mean, people do that online, like little short videos, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, and do that weekly or whatever. I mean, it does happen, but not like a big production like this that's 10 hours long. I mean, it's just a huge undertaking. So, anyways, you'll see it when you get it, and it'll help you go to sleep anyway.
Well, I look forward to seeing it. I will be watching the mail.
Yeah, just hang on to the fast forward button and pop through to the interesting parts that you're interested in. And
cool. Well, we get to talk about that next time. So what's coming up for you otherwise? You got IWF going on done? Do you have any courses coming up that are starting soon, or?
Well, yeah, like actually the seminars I do, which are, groups, they start in September. Actually, this Saturday is my first one.
Okay.
So, it's like this Saturday I have one called Milling Rough Lumber and Edge gluing solid wood panels. So that's kind of what we just talked about. I'm going to show a group of people how to take rough boards, how to joint, plane, read the grain, and edge glue. That's one group. So that's what I do every Saturday morning. Not every Saturday morning, but 2 or 3 a month from September till about early June. And this is like a group of maybe 6 people or 8 people or 12 people, depending on how many sign up. And they come in, and that's demonstration only. That's not hands-on. It's me teaching and demonstrating techniques. So that's just starting this Saturday. And then, of course, people also sign up for private one-on-one courses, which are totally hands-on. And that, that happens all year long. But
cool.
Yeah, right now in the last couple of weeks with the DVD launch and the seminar starting, I mean, it's just crazy time right now.
Crazy busy.
Yeah, plus I came back from the IWF, and I'm doing a couple of articles about the IWF and new products.
Cool.
So, and of course the magazines don't want to write about the IWF in December when it was in August.
Yeah.
They want that stuff quick, right?
Yeah, they want it fresh.
Yeah, so the last few days I'm sifting through, 100 photos I took at the show and what photos I want to show, what products I think are the most interesting, and then writing, right? So very busy lately, but hopefully things will simmer down in another few weeks and get back to the usual routine.
Cool. Well, anybody out there, if you can't wait to hear us talking about it, Hendrik's site has got both of the new DVDs and several of the other, actually all of the other ones that he had put out prior to that too. So
yeah, you have to go to passionforwood.com and then just click on the DVDs button on the left side. You'll go right to the page. I have them actually. The new videos are at the bottom of the web page. It's because I always like having them on that page in the order in which they were produced, because I think they were produced in a way that's meaningful in terms of what topics I selected and in what order. Like the first topic is joiner and planer, and second topic is table saw. Like I sort of take people through, in an order that I think makes sense to learn as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can click on any of the videos. It shows you a big long page that describes every detail of what's on it. And then you can click on a PayPal link to order. And there's a little preview clip on each one as well, like a little 5-minute clip from each video if you want to watch a little piece of it. So there's lots to look at there.
Cool. Yeah, I did the excuse me, I did the same thing with if you look at my site, the main page, it has, the latest video is on top all the time. But if you go to the podcast page, it's always the oldest video, so you can go through them from the oldest to the newest if you wanted to as well.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what, I keep meaning to ask you what the meaning of Ravinheart is in the first place.
Actually, that was, oh my God, I don't even remember how many years I've been on the internet now. And I was,
one?
Yeah, a long time. It was my first username that I ever had. I came up with that, and it was a long, long time ago. And it was a combination of the Raven was written by Edgar Allan Poe, and I wanted to originally use my name, and then I thought that was a dumb thing to do. And I like Edgar Allan Poe and the Raven, and that's that part. And then there was a movie that we were watching, and it was Blackheart was the knight on this movie that me and my friend kept watching all the time.
Right.
And I looked at it, and I'm like, well, I really like Edgar Allan Poe, and I really like this Blackheart Knight guy, and it's kind of geeky enough to put them together. And then it isn't spelt with an E as a joke between my friend and I, because I can't spell anything very well.
Okay.
So we purposely spelt Ravenheart, Ravin, instead of En.
Okay.
And
because I saw it was IN, but then you have a picture of a raven there too, right?
Yes. And then I've always liked the big ravens from and then between Raven, the big ravens, the Edgar Allan Poe reference with the raven, the Blackheart, because ravens are black, and that's the knight that we were always watching at the time, and then the rave in, so that's a play on words too, where there's a rave in. So there's, in rave being the different meaning, not like the rave party, but more of a rave in the heart. So it's more meaningful to someone, and there's a whole bunch of messing around that we did, and we came up with that, and it's stuck from my very first username until now. So everything that there is out there is Ravenheart, spelt with an I, is usually me.
Okay. And the reason I asked is that it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago that I was looking at the picture of the raven on your website when I realized, my last name, Varju, is Hungarian.
Oh, yeah?
And it means crow.
Oh, that's cool.
And crows and ravens are from the same family.
Yep.
So it was kind of bizarre. I didn't put two and two together until recently. I thought, oh, crow and the raven.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been Ravenheart online for, I don't even know how long I've been online now, but I know I've owned Ravinheart.com for 18 to 20 years, something like that.
Wow, not long, eh?
So yeah,
back when the internet was invented.
Yeah, I was on there when there were message boards and a whole bunch of other weird stuff. So yeah, I've been Ravenheart for a very long time.
Wow.
And then since I was going to do the woodworking thing, I thought, well, it's my rendition of how things are going, and I'm Ravenheart, so Ravenheart Renditions it is.
Right. Well, good. Now we know where you're going to be when there's roadkill in your area.
There we go.
We'll be there. Okay, well, good talking to you, Andrew. I guess I'll catch you next month, and well, hopefully you will have been able to watch some of the first video, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, I'll make some time in there. And thanks again, Hendrik.
Okay, great. Talk to you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.